Hey, horror fans, welcome back to Jay vs. Horror and another episode of Hardcore Horror Reviews. Today we're talking about Olaf Ittebach's 2007 crime thriller. Some people call it a horror film. I think it's more of a crime thriller. Dard Divorce. And of course, we know you can be a crime thriller and be a extreme horror film. If you look at stuff like Cold Fish from Japan and the Dead or Alive series and things like that. So, Dar Divorce. This is an interesting one from Olaf Ittebach, one of the German madmen who makes a ton of hardcore films. Is basically the story of a divorce that has been uh, inflated beyond what anyone could possibly imagine when it comes to being a terrible divorce. It's insane, right? So we see this woman, and we're not sure where this is set, by the way, because there's some indication that it's set in America, but nobody's speaking English, or at least speaking English like Americans do, right? And so we start off and we see this woman who is going through a divorce, and she's talking about how she's crushed her husband Tim. He initially set out to take her kids from her, but wasn't able to do that. And she has a background in law and was able to, use that and her friends within the law community and just crushed him. And he went from, being a CEO of a company to now Tim is a dishwasher, and he takes a lot of shit from his boss. So she's talking about this and how miserable she's made her husband's life, and it's all fun and games, right? But then, she starts to talk about how, she hates being so mean to him or whatever. And she calls him up, and, he's got the kids for the weekend. So she's like, hey, you've got the kids for the weekend. Let's just let bygones be bygones. And, tomorrow night we'll all meet up in Chinatown, and then we'll come back to the house and we'll have a nice dinner together. And he agrees to that. So then we see that she does her shopping that day, and when she goes to meet up with Tim and the kids, they are nowhere to be found. Eventually, she goes back home. She still can't get a hold of Tim, and she's, now wondering what the hell's going on. Her dog is missing, and then she finds a letter that's been slipped underneath the door that says simply Dard on it. And we find out that Dard is the Persian word for pain. And she doesn't know that at this point, but she is panicked because it looks like it's written in blood. Uh, so she calls the police. They come out. They say, "Oh, well, there's not much here. This could be anything." And then they leave, and she's still trying to figure out what's going on with Tim. Where's her kids? And then that night, Tim comes stumbling up to the house, and he's been horribly injured. And she goes out to kind of try to help, and realizes that he's too far gone. He's, dead. He dies. And so she goes back in the house to call the police and get them to come out and find out what's going on. But when they come out, of course, Tim's body is gone, and there's no DNA evidence, and none of them believe her. They all think she's making this up. And so the next thing that happens is, we know that everyone's massively concerned about Tim and, the kids being gone now. It's been a couple days. So they send someone out to her house to tap the phone. A cop comes out there to work on the phone tap. And this cop seems to know more than any of the other cops about what's going on, and she's telling her that her ex-husband Tim was working, on the side selling drugs at this pizzeria, and some bad stuff went down there, and Tim shot the place up and took the money and the drugs, and that's why he's on the run. Well, she finds all this to be odd, just like we do, which I appreciate that about this film at least. It is low budget, but there are times where the characters are like, this is bullshit. And she tells him straight up, she's like, look, you're not a cop. I don't know what's going on with you, but, you're obviously not a police officer. You don't even know the names of the other cops. And at this point, of course, yeah, he flips out. He's not a cop. He's one of the gangsters that's looking for this bunch of cocaine and bunch of money. And so he thinks she's in on it with Tim. He continuously asks her about it, and she asks him, what does he know? And he starts beating the hell out of her. I mean, he's just relentlessly punching her in the face. This is where the film starts to get brutal, because up until this, it just seems like a weird crime thriller, and we don't really know where it's going. But he starts to, beat the hell out of her, cut one of her fingers off, and the entire time she's still trying to get information out of him, because he's implied that he found the kids, that Tim was stupid, and when he went and done this, he had the kids with him as a cover, and he left them in the truck while he went in to do this, and when he got out, he wasn't able to get back to the truck, and they took the kids. So there's a fun scene here, and I don't want to give it away, because there's something about it you need to know, but you don't need to know till later on. But yeah, there's a fun scene here where he's got her kids tied up in a warehouse, tied up in plastic wrap, and he's, it's flashing back, telling her about the conversation he had with her husband. And that, he then pulls down one of these, side of beef saws, like they come down from the ceiling. And he just cuts one of the kids right in half, just saws right through him while the other one's sitting there watching. And it's messed up, but it's fun. It's a quick scene. It's a quick effect. You wonder how they even did it, really. But but anyway, so she starts to flip out now, right? He just told her, I saw one of your kids in half. And she starts to fight back. And here's where, she gets the drop on him. She's able to break a glass and cut his throat with the glass. And she's laying there, bleeding next to him, and everything's fucked up. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this guy, Daniel, just shows up. And he just appears, right? And he tells her that he's been following the cop. He offers to help her and tend to her wounds. He calms her down. He tells her this guy was a pimp and a drug dealer, and he's like, he's a psychopath. He's like, he wants to know what happened too, but he's on another level of trying to help her figure out what's going on. And so when he tells her the story of what happened with Tim, it changes quite a bit. And in this story, Tim didn't do anything on purpose. He just kind of walked in on a drug deal that had gone bad, and everyone had killed each other. And there was 2 cases there, one with drugs and one with money. And Tim innocently took them. Not that that makes his intentions any more honorable, but he did not kill everybody there. He just kind of happened upon the scene and took the stuff. And but now we find out that Daniel's a lying-ass piece of shit. Because he drugs her. And when she wakes up, she's all tied up. And Daniel has decided to go to work on her. And he is like, the guy before was small time. This guy's a real torture expert. And he starts telling her all the things he's going to do to her. And then he starts to tell her about, oh, I know I was following you too. I know you had a boyfriend that you were screwing around with. And then he tells her this long, extended story about him following her boyfriend around and kidnapping him and doing terrible things to him. Oof. And, yeah, he did some terrible things to him. I don't want to get too far into that stuff because it's not something I really know about. It's BDSM stuff that then turns into hardcore torture, and I don't really know anything about that culture where I could say where the line is or whatever. So, but yeah, it's not good. And but then of course, the woman Natalie here, she gets away again, and she's able to headbutt him and bust his nose open, and then she grabs a hypodermic needle off the floor, and but the entire time she does this, and she stabs him in the eye with the hypodermic needle and fucks him up, right? But the entire time she's doing this, he's got a hammer in his hand, and he's swinging wildly at her, and he hits her like 3 or 4 times in the face and just fucks her face up, like totally shifts it off kilter, just totally bam, like one half of her face is one way and the other half's another way. And so at this point, the film starts to wind down a little bit. There's still 2 more little stages to go. The next stage, I don't want to talk too much about because it's kind of a twist, and of course the last stage is definitely supposed to be a twist. it's interesting in this film that Olaf does try to put some work into the movie. There's some writing here. I mean, it's not good, and it just seems kind of like maybe the plot to a early '80s mystery television show episode. The guy. I don't want to give it away because some people won't see it coming, I guess, and I don't want to ruin it for them. But it's a fun movie. You can't take it too seriously. The effects are not that great, but they're fun. I'll say that. They're all practical effects, pretty much, and it's fun. And the woman fighting, basically what she's doing here is she's going through different stages of psychopaths, trying to figure out what happened to her kids. And there is a pretty decent ending, I thought. I mean, the only thing I'll say I didn't like about this ending, and it's just a movie thing, and God bless them. It's just something you do because you've seen it in other movies. There's a whole scene here at the end of this movie where the bad guy goes into total exposition mode and tells you the whole plan from the beginning and how everything went down, and you're like, oh God, just if you tell us who did it, we're smart enough to figure out how, unless it's just something that's amazing, like that movie The Heist with Gene Hackman, where nobody figured out how they did it until it was over with, right? Or something like that. If the caper is that big of a part of the story, that's fine. But this is not a caper movie by any sense of the beads. It's just a terrible film about the horrors of divorce. And I think the film spends a long time trying to like beat this woman down for her personality, actually, the way she treated her husband, the way she tried to break him after the divorce. But he did some shitty stuff to her too. He tried to take her kids from her, and yeah. So I kind of thought that's where we were going with it for a long time, but then it turns into something else. It's kind of a mystery, and yeah, it's a crime thriller. It reminds me of something like Cold Fish or something like that, where it's not necessarily a horror film, but you're going to see a lot of people getting chopped up. You're going to see people getting killed, their bodies dismembered, whatever, for the purpose of that crime that's being committed. And so, yeah, I like Dark Divorce. It's one of Olaf Ittebach's better films that actually has like a story, and I've seen a couple of his that were just like, it's like somebody traced another film. There was one that Bill recommended to me here a while back that I watched. It was like somebody traced Dusk Till Dawn, and this is what they came up with. This film is a little more on its own. It's a little bit more its own thing. It tries to have those American thriller elements, like late '90s thriller elements towards the end, and become like a whodunit. It's an extreme whodunit, right? But at the same time, it's just fun. The effects are fun. It's fun to see foreign movies and see, this is the way they think Americans are. This is what they've seen in movies that they paid attention to, and then that's what came back out. And that's who they think we are, at least in the movie world. But yeah, guys, I'm going to give Dark Divorce 7 out of 10. I'm going to recommend it if you like effects movies, if you like terrible effects, if you like stuff like Terrifier, you'll like Dark Divorce. It's got those kind of effects in it where they're practical and it's just as good as they can get. And sometimes they do go over the top and go schlocky with it because they know it's not real, so why not have fun, right? And yeah, I'd give it 7 out of 10. It's not for everybody. If you don't like foreign films, of course, don't go there. If you don't like extreme films, of course, don't go there. If you don't like films that are on the fringe of being horror, where they're not actually horror, they're right there on the fringe. And some people, God love them, they cannot get past that genre thing. And once they start to see something as a thriller, they're like, oh, I'm done. This is not a horror film. So, I mean, personally, I think if you overgeneralize anything, genre, people, soda, whatever it is, if you overgeneralize things, you're going to miss out on some pretty good things in the long run. And guys, that's all we've got for today. That's 2007's Dark Divorce from Olaf Ittebach. Putting a link to the movie in the description, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And we will talk to you the next time we got something worth talking about. Our next film in this series is going to be Visceral, and I might get to that today. I went on a tear last night and watched a bunch of oldies but goodies. And our next film is going to be Visceral, and it's about a serial killer boxer who has lost his shit and is now hurting people on a tremendous plane. Yes, the pain is real and visceral. All right, guys. And that's all we got for this week. We'll talk to you guys the next time we got something worth talking about. Bye.